I'm Jim Check, with me, managing editor. What? We're going this time? Wow. It's bumpy. We had a couple of bumps. You got to see, it's like chaos central here as we try to get going. We don't have that $1.5 billion to work with like CBC. So for us, it's like chaos until we actually go live, and then hopefully it seems smoother after that. But the headlines: Poilievre wins stunning majority of confidence. Trump hailed as peacemaker. And has Carney been waiting for this moment? Is Harper advising Carney? Poilievre promises hope, says liberals rely on fear. It's all about a pipeline. Media rakes Smith over the coal on separatists. Canada is bleeding small businesses. Separatists speak to the media. They gave him some airtime. Carney's still touting climate agenda. Health minister seals vax files for 15 years. There's some accountability for you. Feds pro-Castro. Rents go up for the military. Extremists in leadership for Canadian politics. AI finding fraud like crazy. Can we get them up here? Canada cooking the books and spending like drunken sailors. Now there's a headline. Why does it seem like every potential deal is tied to Brookfield? That's a good question. Only some demonstrations get media attention. Canada not the place to invest or raise capital. AI is off on its own. Melania debuts big at the box office. Britain gets a deal with China. WHO makes Trudeau-like claims. UN going broke. And Jesus on the big stage. All that and a lot more on the really big show. Like I said, it's like chaos when we start going here in the morning because we're trying to scramble to get everything going. Because we do like sometimes 70, 80 stories to bring you the real news, not the media narrative of fear and division. We try to bring you the stuff that matters. How's that? Stuff that matters. That was an old tagline of ours. But the big thing, let's just look at our traffic for January. Our goal was 1 million. That was our goal. And 1.569. Thank you, everybody that is a frequenter of the really big show. We are really thankful for everybody that comes on an ongoing basis. Some of the comments. Sorry, I had some carbonated water before I started here. You guys really hit the spot. Lots of good comments there. Best news show on earth. Wow, it's a tough one to live up to. And then somebody says it's glad to see now media is so based. Hallelujah. There's one. There's hope. Lots of really good things here. And then some contributions as well. And lots. I put some up there so that you can kind of like, if we just put the screens up, people can read their own there too. And then, wow, we put a lot up there. I mean, there's lots of comments. Somebody said that I remind them of Rex Murphy. That's high praise as well. And then Ian says, I have to say, I have a real soft spot growing for Ian Burns. I was a little slow on it, but I did realize he's quite a learned fellow, a scholarly gentleman, so to speak. There you go. 2 compliments, one for Ian, one for me. And then we're off to the races. And look at that dog's body shipping in already. That's awesome. We are so pleased to see that. And thank you for the contribution for independent media as we tried to change the channel and the narrative here in Canada. Get this out to as many people as you can. While we're live, if you could share this on your Facebook, because we can't access our Facebook of over 200,000 on our Meta platforms. But you can put this on there and help us get our really big show out there to way more people on Facebook. The Liberals, with their scheme to block us on Facebook, but they can't block you yet. But here we go. Conrad Black has something to say about Mark Carney. And Terry Newman also writes for the National Post. Conrad Black writes opinion pieces for the National Post. That says Canada has to do better, and that starts with the Prime Minister himself. And we've been saying it over and over again. Like, we're in our own way. We're our own worst enemy. And, he finishes off, strong countries have an obligation to be fair, but not to be weak or even always polite. And all countries have an obligation to do their best, which is where we have failed. Trump, whatever his limitations or excesses isn't our problem. We are our own problem. We have to do better, and that starts with the Prime Minister. Rules-based order was a priggish fraud in which the Americans held an umbrella that kept the Soviet Union away, and the U.S. generally indulged a hodgepodge of countries in order to prevent them from wandering off the reservation in the Cold War. We have only ourselves to blame for not having made the most of this magnificent country. And it is certainly not too late to put that right. I mean, we've been saying it over and over, like a decade of weak leadership, as Ian puts it, a decade of weak leadership. And it seems like we're on the same path still.
Yeah, I can't say. I haven't read this article, but it doesn't look like there's much to disagree with. I'm sure there is somewhere. But it's amazing that he's still so involved, I think, Conrad Black.
Yeah, he still writes for the National Post opinion pieces a lot. He was a big deal, actually.
Yeah.
A very big deal. Conrad Black. And who was his partner again? I met his partner several times. They both ended up serving some jail time. David Black. David Black.
Yeah.
No. David Black? No. Conrad Black and David. Oh, it escapes me right now.
Nobody's going to know.
But between the two of them.
There was also an English fellow, wasn't there, who was very important in that.
They ran the largest newspaper empire. What's that?
David Radler? Is that who you meant?
That's what it is. Yeah, I've met him several times, actually. We were talking about deals way back when. David Radler and Conrad Black, he told me about his jail time, too. That was kind of interesting. And we'll have to share that one day. Yeah, they had the biggest media empire in North America. And then it all unraveled.
They were in Britain. They had the Telegraph, I believe, Conrad Black did.
It all unraveled with a little a story that kind of started here in Kelowna, by the way. So there you go. Interesting times. Terry Newman also points out, here's a speech or a book that Mark Carney wrote back in before he ran for prime minister. And a lot of the stuff is the same. It seems like he's had this speech in mind that he did at the UN there. You know, here's a bit of that speech. We are at a hinge moment in history, reminiscent of what the Allies faced at the end of 41. Does that sound familiar? When Winston Churchill was in Ottawa meeting with Mackenzie King, an age of uncertainty and rising perils that is reshaping global, political, economical, and technological and social orders and overturning our day-to-day lives. That was before Trump even got close to the White House. Seems rather interesting that the same speech has been kind of like rehashed, right? And then I won't read the whole thing. You can go find it online. Into this storm come two of the most profound and rapid economic and social transformations in human history. Ready for this? The net zero revolution and the AI transformation. The net zero revolution is on its way. I think the net zero revolution is over.
So this was published in 2025. Yeah. So Trump had been in once anyway. So, I mean, in that sense, it's just typical sort of fare, isn't it? From somebody like him to talk about how the world is coming to an end and all that. And we have to revolutionize everything.
For the net zero revolution, this piece out here, you put this in, Carney regularly taking advice from Harper, and that's a report that says that. It says he's making frequent use of advice from the former prime minister, and that's from the Toronto Star. And it says that Harper has spoken regularly with Carney since he began PM. The two men set to appear public together this week, unveiling Harper's official portrait. I take that with a grain of salt.
And this article is it's from the Toronto Star, so bear in mind that it's on the left, and they're looking right to the center and or center left, I would say, and very confused and maybe a bit saddened about that. But it's a long list of the this article. I mean, it's a long list of the comparisons and similarities between the two men.
I think a lot of this likely is as after Poilievre's win, that article just showed up fortuitously at the same time from the Toronto Star. But hey, you take it with a pinch of salt or a shaker of salt, whatever you want to do with it. But Poilievre, that's the big story this weekend. You know, they were saying that he wasn't going to win, you know, like there are all these floor crossings, but he won a stunning majority there. 87.4% of the members supported him in confidence there. And that is a big deal for the Conservative Party there. And you know, the place was packed, and then the other media, we had lots of reaction from that event. But we're going to play a little clip here from Pierre as he's on the stage there.
And we need to unite this country like never before, because a house divided cannot stand. You know, here we go again. Liberals are in power, and just as night follows day, separatist movements are in resurgence back in Quebec and here in Alberta. These movements, which had been dormant or even dead when Prime Minister Harper left office. Now, we can simply attack people who feel this way, or we can ask them why. Why in Alberta and Quebec? Why, particularly among young people in those provinces, have so many lost hope in Confederation? Well, here's a few hints. For the last 10 years, Ottawa has told our young people that our history is filled with shame and horror, that we are a post-national country with no core identity, and that our youth will never own homes. But other than that, they should feel great about being united in Canada. All the while, the federal government stomps on Alberta's energy sector and Quebec's jurisdiction. Now, our message to those youth and to all of the people in Alberta and Quebec who are losing hope in our country: you will again have a country that respects your autonomy, is proud of your industries, unites us around our common identity and history, a country that will afford you the hopeful future that you have earned.
So boisterous crowd there.
Very, yeah, they were very keen. I must say, I did watch it, as I assume you did and most other people did, and I don't think it was a particularly good speech at all. Really, it was just pastiche from previous Poilievre speeches. I mean, I feel like AI, unironically, could have written that. He could have just said, "Look at my last 20 speeches and synthesize them and create something that looks like a new speech." There was nothing in that that was new. But you know, it's obviously a message that resonates with lots of people. It wasn't necessarily bad in any way, but it was. I just found it very, very boring, very uninteresting. Like no new ground charted or anything like that. He did at the beginning, right early on in the speech, he sort of made a reference to the rectitude of the Ottawa Freedom Convoy, the protesters, but in a very oblique way. There was no detail. It was literally like a throwaway line, and then he moved on. So, I mean, other than that, and he saw, we obviously know his opinions on it anyway. He's gone into a bit more depth in the past, but so little said. And then what's considered by many to be his main weakness, which is how he speaks about Trump and the Americans. Nothing really, not very much at all. Very, very weak sauce.
And then we do have another piece here on the pipeline. We say it on this show: energy is everything, and cheap, reliable energy is prosperity. And he talked about how the pipeline, and again, Canada's #1 export, getting it to a tidewater. Let's listen in on this.
We'll replace anti-development laws like C-69 and C-48 with new laws that will quickly approve projects and allow energy shipping off our west coast. We will also quickly greenlight Danielle Smith's proposed pipeline to the Pacific.
That's good. I mean, the pipeline. When will we get a decision on the pipeline? Which seems like both of them ran on a pipeline. They even brought, Liberals brought out Jean Chrétien to rally up the crowds on the pipeline. No pipeline. No pipeline. No pipeline. And
yeah.
That's the thing. Like, well, how can it take this long to make a decision on whether to do a pipeline when the rest of the world is moving ahead in so many other things, and we're still struggling to make a decision on the pipeline? And here's Vasi Kapellas talking to Danielle Smith on the pipeline.
The one project I want to ask you about is, of course, the possibility, and we've spoken about this on multiple occasions, no surprise, the possibility of a pipeline to the West Coast. And in particular, I listened with great interest as the Prime Minister very specifically said this week in the House of Commons that the MOU will get a pipeline built to the West Coast. Like, that was the exact verbiage that he used that I had not heard him be as explicit about before. He's intimated such would be the case, but not as explicitly as that. Has he been explicit to you in providing assurances that that will happen?
Well, I think he's told us, of course, to go through the process, but that was what the MOU was about. It was about us jointly committing to what we would need to do to get a pipeline built. I mean, look, when foreign dignitaries came to Canada under Justin Trudeau, he said there was no business case for energy to be exported. This is a prime minister who went to Asia and heard the same things we heard. In Asia, they want two main things. They want energy security and the food security. And we've got them both, and we've got such an advantage because we've got several ports off the West Coast that we can export to them. We've already got an oil pipeline that has demonstrated its value, a gas pipeline, propane pipeline, and if we can get another 1 million barrel a day pipeline to the coast, it will open those new markets, and I think that that's exactly what it is we're trying to do as we face some uncertainty with our U.S. relationship.
Has he been explicit with you?
You mean, has he said, like, no matter what you put in, it's going to be approved? No, he's not said that. He said, do your work and put it in the major projects office, go through the process. And we're taking that seriously. We have all of the major pipeline project proponents at the table. And there's already one port that we ruled out, and that was the port that was going to be with Northern Gateway, Kitimat. And part of that is, I mean, I always questioned why they chose that port, because it's pretty obvious to me. There's a lot of ports with many channels you have to navigate, and Kitimat is one of those. You can navigate the smaller LNG ships a little bit more easily, but much harder to navigate some of the large tanker ships, as I understand it. So why take that risk? So let's work on trying to find a port that is on the open water so that you have a direct line of sight to the open sea, and you can mitigate a lot of the environmental concerns. And that's what we're looking for, and there's several options along that coast.
That's good.
I don't know what she means there. Several options. It's Prince Rupert, isn't it, really? That's the obvious one. But I do, like, not that I'm a master of oil or anything like that, but I always wondered about Kitimat. It did seem like the much more difficult option. But that was actually, like, in the you know, the safety assessment or whatever, they said that Kitimat was the only plausible one, didn't they? And that Prince Rupert was too dangerous. So, God knows, really. But, I mean, I would suspect that she is closer to the decision makers there, and she knows that Kitimat is not popular.
Well, I mean, it seems even like we haven't even picked a port yet. Like, I mean, how far away are these pipeline decisions? Really, how far away are they?
Well, she said she hopes in an ideal world that construction will begin in 2030.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, TMX took something like 12 years, wasn't it? TMX, about a decade. Stephen Gilboa will be rubbing his hands.
We shared
together. Peak oil is coming.
We shared with you a while back that there's pipelines built in Texas that take 2 years from conception to completion. So,
yeah.
I know we got some mountains to deal with in that, but, like, you know, like, the biggest hurdle that we have is politics. That's the biggest hurdle. Like, that's the biggest hurdle. Again, since Trudeau, when they kiboshed the approved pipeline, it's been now 11 years, and we're still nothing. John Gotti, thanks for the contribution. Thank you for the contribution. Now, 11 projects submitted to the major projects office, 0 been approved. Exactly. And they even pulled one off because it wasn't even a major project. That was, I think, that one in the territories there, a small electricity plant or whatever it was.
And also another thing, in reference to Danielle Smith, you know, pity is not something like one should often feel listening to Danielle Smith, but I did feel pity for her when she was speaking to, I think it was CPAC, and she started going on about that, you know, there's the possibility that we can get trucks, and we can send trucks to Nova Scotia and then export from Nova. I was just like, are you serious, man? Trucks to Nova Scotia. And you have to think of it in that context. Like, that's how broken Canadian politics is. You've got Danielle Smith talking about trucks to Halifax to send oil to, you know, Africa and Europe and India, wherever else. It's just like, can we really do no better than that? It's so primitive, considering, we have the technology, we have the ability to build pipelines to the east, but there's no conversation about that. And we're talking about these 11 projects. We're talking about everything that Carney promised and the Liberals promised, but there's nothing about the east. That's, obviously the West it's a jewel. It's a jewel in the crown, isn't it? Access to those growing Asian nations, access to Japan and China as well, and all the rest of it. Like that's great. It's so good to have that, to have the Pacific, and it's quite it's quite rare, quite hard to come by that. So that's great. But just look at the East again. Get your maps out, get your globes out, and just look at the East. Look at what it makes possible. Look at the options that you get, and it's not even being discussed. It's not even on the agenda. It's just shut up about it. We'll send some trucks to Halifax.
So before we move on to other topics, we've got something new and different that we're going to try on the show, and we're going to bring in some of the some guests live into the show as well. We got John Carpay, the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and we're going to talk about Made in Canada. So he's going to pop in here for 15, 20 minutes, and then we're going to continue on with the show. So that's going to happen around 10:30. So in the meantime, we're going to cover some of this other news we have going on. And this is from Holly Dona Blacklocks. 10% of small businesses gone since COVID. A tenth of businesses vanished since the pandemic. And that's from the Department of Industry figures. And we saw that, how they got crushed during the COVID, while big businesses got to stay open. And we're bleeding businesses. And that's from the Simon Ganderholf, chief economist with the Federation. Entrepreneurs by nature are optimists. But when we asked them if they would recommend that someone start a small business in Canada, the downward trend is very concerning. Small businesses in Canada last year numbered just over 1 million and represented a loss of 121,000 businesses from pre-pandemic levels. Countries should be growing small businesses. The small businesses is how Canada was built, and it's bleeding small businesses instead of going up, we're going backwards. Figure represented all businesses with fewer than 100 employees. The majority, 58%, had fewer than 5 employees. Small businesses last year employed 6.8 million people, the largest job creator in the private sector. And what we've seen, especially in British Columbia, is attack on small businesses, more taxes, more this, more that, more red tape, more everything, till they're just basically like bled out. I've worked with many of the small businesses here locally, and a small grocer that had 10 operations here basically bled out with a whole bunch of different policies and regulations put on them. They basically closed up. So, there you get Emily. We're going to talk about her, Emily Lowen from BC Greens, talking about these one person owning all the grocery where she's wrong. But the businesses, the NDP has choked off small businesses here in British Columbia and in Canada. And then this is the stats don't lie. It is harder and harder to run small businesses in Canada with all the taxes and the different regulations and everything that is put on small businesses. They treat small businesses like they're Google, and then the Google in them get benefits from the auto manufacturers, get billions in investments, and small businesses get just a kick in the butt. And they got that kick in the butt during COVID. They were forced to close while large businesses stayed open. And we even saw that with Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau's taco and tinsel tax relief there. The small businesses paid the price because they didn't have the equipment to change all the cash registers and all that to take the tax off for that 3-month window. It actually punished small businesses. Sure, the big operators can do whatever. Again, small businesses at the short end of the stick because they don't have lobbyists like the big businesses have. They don't have a lobbyist. They don't have people like Tim Hortons where they're going there and basically using the government like their HR department there for temporary foreign workers.
Yeah. And small businesses and small people have known that for many, many years. And it takes me back again to Mark Carney's overrated Davos speech where he's thrown his toys out of the pram because he feels like the Americans aren't being very nice anymore. So we're not gonna live the lie anymore that this is fair and just for everyone. It's like, yeah, welcome to life as an ordinary person. And that means that as a small business as well. You can't just call up the minister and get something sorted out, can you? You can't get that special treatment. And it's always been a farce, hasn't it? Even though they pretend that it's a level playing field for all commercial enterprises. No, it isn't. It's much easier when you have loads of money in a massive business, because then you can get what you want. How many times have we seen that? You can even get corporate welfare to the tune of like tens of billions of dollars if you're big enough, if you've got enough heft.
Even the way the treatment from CRA on small businesses versus Brookfield, $6.5 billion in tax dodging. Nobody going after that. And even CRA says, like, it's hard to go after these big guys because they got lawyers and all that stuff. So they're almost impossible to go after. Meanwhile, the small businesses, Francois Philippe Champagne and them can reach into the pocket and just pull money out steady from the small businesses until they choke them off. This should be like a 5-alarm bell fire ringing for Canada. Small businesses dropping in Canada. This is what, like lots of people, their dream is to start a small business. That's their thing. Yeah. Well, I mean, Alberta treated like the people that had some kind of plague or something for 10 years, policies that suppressed the natural resources, and then a lot of anger, and then that stoked the whole separatist movement. And then that was the big theme there, even at Poilievre's convention, was separatists. That's what the media was keying on, because they were all there, CTV and CPAC and CBC and that. But what's the questions they wanted to ask? But here's one in there for Danielle Smith on the separatist movement.
Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country.
Thank you.
I mean, that one's pretty obvious, right? Stating the obvious.
Yeah, it really is. And what's so funny is just how justified she is in saying that. And yet we've heard David Eby say the same thing many times, haven't we, in his own sort of awkward, nerdy fashion, when, of course, that's not really true. That's not really the reality. BC's like almost revenue neutral, isn't it, in terms of equalization, whereas Alberta is the glorious cash cow that is milked, exactly as she says, milked by the federal government to give to Liberal voting provinces.
Well, here's none other than Rosie Barton here, the CBC talking head here, working for the Liberals. Let's listen to what she goes. She goes at Danielle Smith here.
Coast, a true nation-building project.
A little bit about separatism. Is it appropriate, do you think, for members of the Alberta Prosperity Group to meet with officials from the Trump administration and to discuss money?
Well, I would put it the other way. I mean, I think that it is up to the American administration to respect Canadian sovereignty and to respect that this is a decision that should be made in Alberta by Albertans, and that if they have any official discussions, it would be with those who have been elected to represent the people.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of undermines you, does it not?
Well, I guess I don't feel so, because I have a really good relationship with the U.S. ambassador. I've got an envoy in Ottawa as well as in Washington who is working every single day to build those relationships. And so we're doing a lot of work on the ground every day, meeting with lots of people.
Did you talk to, I think you met with Ambassador Hoekstra last week. Did you say something to him about how you would like him to, the administration, to follow the proper channels when discussing this issue?
It didn't come up. Okay. But I did talk to my James Carpenter after I saw that it was in the news. I did talk to James Carpenter, who is my Ottawa representative, and and I asked him to raise it with the ambassador, as well as my envoy in Washington, to raise it with them in the U.S.
Other premiers had a lot to say about this. Premier Ford said you should denounce it, and you did not do that.
Well, there's a lot of hurt people here. I mean, we have
when I look at the movement, I see as 30% or more of Albertans have given up on the country. That's distressing, and that is a sign, I think, of a loss of hope. And it's my job to restore hope. But I'm not
Sure,
going to.
but why can't you say?
I'm not going to demonize a million.
Not demonize them, but why can't you say this isn't the
denounce
path
a million
forward?
Albertans? I just feel like it's my job to allow for a bit of a pressure release valve. If people feel this way, they need an avenue to be able to express it. So I'm going to watch and see how the petition plays out. We'll know by the end of May if they have enough signatures to go to a vote, and if so, then we'll schedule that probably for the fall.
That seems risky. That seems risky to me, particularly at a time when there are real threats to our sovereignty that are coming from the outside.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you have the same conversation in Quebec where they're about to elect a Parti Québécois leader. I think it's far more risky.
I ask questions there too.
I think it's far more risky to have this question drag on for years. If this is an acute issue that we're facing, because
is Rosemary Barton an activist? Or is she a journalist? Which one is she? Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Like, it's pretty risky. So what they should do, Rosie, is just say they can't have it. Just mean nobody has a right to speak. That's what Rosemary Barton wants. Like, nobody gets a right to speak. And we're going to see more of it, how they kind of basically are saying that you don't even deserve a voice. Shouldn't we just find out why everybody's angry? Shouldn't we just find that out? 1 million people. David Eby, too, as well, calling them treasonous. 1 million people. How many people will we ostracize in Canada before we say, hey, what is it? What's bothering you?
Yeah. But also strange that all the burden, and she was right to push back Danielle Smith, but like the whole burden has been put on Danielle Smith for some reason. This is absolutely Mark Carney's jurisdiction. And if there's going to be a reaction to the Americans meeting with Canadian separatists, it has to be from Ottawa. It has to be Mark Carney himself. Where's the pressure on Mark Carney? Again, they've got the wrong person. They're asking the wrong person.
No, exactly. They don't put that pressure. They don't even get access to do that, though. Danielle Smith allows herself to have access. You wouldn't get Mark Carney sitting down there for 20, 25 minutes, would you? No access.
But then also, if Danielle Smith refused access the way that Carney does, she would be called out daily.
They would go crazy. They would go crazy.
But Carney just gets away with it. Carney, we have to emphasize, because I think you just get used to things, don't you? You just get inured to your treatment as a slave in life. But we have to emphasize Mark Carney refuses to do interviews basically with anyone ever. He is very, very anti-media, anti-transparency, anti-openness. He's a very secretive little fellow. And his stage managed press conferences where he asks 4 or 5 Ottawa journalists, the same people every time, to ask really boring, irrelevant questions. That doesn't really count. He doesn't submit himself to a proper scrutinizing, does he? He just doesn't do it. Unless he's in England, he likes to speak to them.
And then it's pretty obvious to so many people now, even in the media, that are starting to call out CBC for their very pro-Liberal Party stance. I mean, it just basically was an attack on Danielle Smith and on the Albertans that are seeking a voice. And instead of going and asking them, what's the deal? Why is everybody so mad? So here's Vasi Kapellas here actually asking a similar type question of, look at Danielle Smith goes, and then now she sits down with Vasi Kapellas. Show me where in this year that Mark Carney has done that. Let's go. Let's play.
Understanding that, empathizing with it, endorsing it, advocating for it is not the same thing as saying you want to break up the country. Like, why are you unwilling to say your caucus should not sign that petition?
As soon as you tell me which caucus members have signed, then we can have a conversation. I just don't know that any have signed. So we're talking about a hypothetical situation I don't even know exists. When we have a conversation in caucus, we talk about how we can ensure that the federal government lives up to its commitments so that we can have our constitutional jurisdiction respected. And that's what we'll keep doing.
Understanding that.
I mean, they instead of going to Vasi will go and talk to the Jeffrey Rath here later. We'll play that clip here, but
it's a funny one. Yeah.
We got a reaction here from Keith Wilson. We've actually reached out and asked for an interview with Keith Wilson, the lawyer, too, and he's saying why it's not treason With David Eby accused we won't play this clip. It's just getting a little long in the tooth. We'll play this clip here, though, from Keith Wilson on why it's not treason, which is pretty obvious it's not treason. But it doesn't stop David Eby from using the words. We're going to reach out. I don't know if we have. We've asked to reach out to David Eby. I've asked that to happen so that we can ask him why is he sticking to us. He's a lawyer as well, so I'm pretty sure he knows the definition.
Now, let me explain something. The criminal code is absolutely clear on what the definition of treason includes, and it includes the use of violence and physical force to overthrow the government, or the collection of essentially military secrets and leaking those and providing them to a foreign government to allow them to overthrow the government. The Supreme Court of Canada, in the 1998 reference case, made it absolutely clear that every province has a constitutional right to hold a referendum on a clear question about independence, and if a clear majority of the people in that province vote to leave Canada, they have the legal right to do so. Embarking on a lawful constitutional process is not treason.
That's good. I mean, anybody with a dictionary or Chat GPT or Grok or I don't know, name anything or just a bit of common sense would recognize that it's not treason. But hey.
Well, there's a legal term, and that varies from country to country, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But then there's also more like the literary or emotive term. So that's what Eby, being a lawyer and very familiar with such slippery language, that's what he would say. I was using it in like the literary sense, or like the demotic. I wasn't talking about the criminal code.
Here's Jeffrey Rath, the legal counsel for Alberta Prosperity Project, talking to Vasi Kapellas. And there was so much reaction from media, screeching at Vasi Kapellas, how dare you platform him? They don't even want to hear from him. 1 million Albertans, nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear, right? That's what's wrong with the people on the left. They don't even want to hear.
What about the right of reply? It's like the most basic rule in journalism. I know CBC doesn't understand what that means and routinely just do completely one-sided packages and articles and whatnot. But if you are even slightly serious, as not just a journalist, but as a human being, you want to give the right to reply to the other side, or at least you want to learn what they think so that you can actually engage with reality.
Yeah,
sad, isn't it?
Watch this interview and watch Vasi catch herself once there when she says Canadians. She's just not the Canadian. Anyway, watch. You'll pick it up as soon as you watch. Let's watch this.
Understand how on the face of it, Canadians would view some Canadians outside of the ones that support your cause, who are not necessarily unempathetic to the frustrations expressed by people in this province, but who would view the idea of people here meeting with a government that has, spoken the way it has about this country as a whole as problematic and seeking money to make this happen.
I understand that there's a lot of Ontarians and people in Quebec that suffer deeply from Trump derangement syndrome, but we're not doing anything untoward. It's absolutely, from our perspective, we're just conducting due diligence on behalf of our fellow Albertans. We're serious professionals. I mean, I've argued cases at the Supreme Court of Canada, for goodness sake. I mean, we take what we're doing very seriously, and obviously the attitude of the United States towards Alberta independence, which incidentally is overwhelmingly enthusiastic, is something that informs our movement going forward. If the United States said, oh God, we can't tolerate that, flies in the face of, the communist New World Order, we'll slap a 300% tariff on Albertans if they leave because we want you to remain resource slaves of the communist government in Ottawa, it would be a totally different conversation. But that's not the case. We're gratified that it's the case. And quite frankly, the Trump administration shows Albertans far more respect than is shown to Albertans by the government in Ottawa. Do you think three of us could get a meeting with Tim Hodgson to talk about the need for a pipeline to the Pacific Northwest so that David Eby can't continue to hold us hostage? Of course not, because they want us to be held hostage. So, you know, so I understand that there are Canadians that are upset, especially in Ontario, that when Alberta leaves, that Ontarians for the first time in their lives are going to have to pay their own bills and pay the bills of the Maritimes that we've been paying for years. I understand that's upsetting to people, but they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Do you believe, though, that the motivations of the people you're meeting with or in the Trump administration are altruistic? Like, do you think they want what's good for you and people who support your cause, or do you think that they're trying to leverage this to get the upper hand against the country of Canada as a whole?
I've studied foreign policy at the university level. I have an honors degree in political science and I have an honors degree in law from the London School of Economics. Don't you think that Communist Ottawa is leveraging Communist China against Alberta? I mean, come on. I mean, you know, we live in the world of realpolitik.
But you don't mind being a pawn in that fight?
We're not a pawn. I mean, we're talking to them about our aspirations and we have our goals and objectives. So, you know, we're not a pawn. We're actually more like a rook or a queen on a chessboard moving forward in the direction that we want to move freely on the board. You know, the pawns are the provincial premiers like Danielle Smith that are being manipulated by Carney and Eby and Communist China to do their globalist bidding, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
When you mentioned that you've met with people in the State Department, you feel as though that message has been conveyed to Scott Bessent. That's why he made the comments he did. How high up are the meetings that you're taking? Are there names, for example, of people that you're meeting with that we would recognize offhand?
I'm not sure about that, probably. I mean, we're meeting at a very high level. People in our meetings are going, you know, direct.
Stephen Miller?
I'm not going to say. I mean,
Why not?
We're not, because we have an agreement with the people that we're meeting with that we're not disclosing the identities of the people that we're meeting with. So
why not? May I ask?
Well, because it's an agreement. So that's all.
But again, like, would it be reasonable to question the motivations of making that agreement?
Well, that's probably why we're not talking about it. We don't want them being bothered by people from the press in Canada asking them silly questions. They don't want to be wasting their time answering questions from the press, right? And we're fine with that. We don't care. I mean, we know already that our meetings are paying.
So you can go find that full interview on Jeffrey Rath on X. He's got the unedited version there. CTV provided it to him because they clipped it up for themselves. But I'd advise you to go watch it. Again, you know, good job on Vassy to going out and doing it. But again, you know, some of the reaction from some of the media is like, you know, giving him a platform, just like, again, he's representing over 1 million Albertans. So how many does it take? Like Trudeau said, the trucker convoy was just a fringe group that they didn't want to give a platform to. This is 1 million people, 1 million plus.
I don't know if he represents 1 million necessarily, but he's certainly one of the million, you could say, and something of a spokesman. But I would say a lot of people who are in favour of independence will have different views than he does.
Well, he's the legal counsel for the movement.
I mean, he's a very good interview.
He's the legal counsel.
Well worth putting on camera.
He is the legal counsel for the movement.
But the movement, I just, it's not necessarily the same thing. I don't like, you know, let's look at a comparison like Brexit, for example, when they voted to leave the European Union. There was an official leave group, but that doesn't represent everybody that wants to leave, obviously. That's like, people want to leave for their own reasons. And this guy, you know, he rubs quite a lot of people up the wrong way, doesn't he? So obviously there'll be lots of people that want Alberta to leave, but don't consider him to represent them.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't like the cowboy hat. And you only wear, I wear a cowboy hat when I go to Stampede. When I go to Stampede, I got myself a nice Stetson. Who doesn't, right? Even Mark Carney donned the Stetson. Even Justin Trudeau put a Stetson on for Calgary Stampede. I don't think he can show up there anymore. But we have
quite interesting that he went to LSE in London, a university in London, which is kind of famous. It's famous for having lecturers and students that are the precise opposite of this man, basically. So I'm quite interested in how he found that.
So we have reached out to both Jeffrey Rath and Keith Wilson to get interviews to come on the show. So we have reached out. So if you want to drop this video underneath their stuff, that'd be great. We're going to move on to some climate change. This is a little clip here on our money being sent abroad to drive climate policy.
First of all, ask Douglas and James, what percentage of global carbon emissions is Britain responsible for?
Historically or in present
Currently.
terms? About 1%?
About 1%. So if we reduce our carbon emissions to zero and destroy our economy even more than we already have, we will reduce global carbon emissions by 1%. That's what we're talking about. Now, that's what we're talking about, right? And the promise of net zero was, well, it doesn't matter that it's 1% because Britain is a global leader. We will inspire the world if we destroy our industry and hand it over to China, who's going to make the same things that we still need but dirtier, and then we ship them back here on ships that use the dirtiest fuel imaginable. If we do that, the Chinese will be inspired to commit industrial suicide as well. The Chinese clearly are not as stupid as our leaders, so they haven't committed industrial suicide. That is what net zero has done. We have the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world. That means we basically cannot make anything in this country anymore. And we will not be able to make anything in this country anymore until we let go of this ridiculous idea that we will inspire other people to jump off a cliff like lemmings, because we did. It doesn't work. It's not going to deliver prosperity. And James talks about we need a strong economy and we need net zero. Those two things are incompatible. You can't have both. So either you choose to make your people prosperous, or you choose to pursue.
That's good. That's good. That's not the clip I wanted to play, but I wanted to play that next. I wonder if you can go back to that other clip there, the one above it, and see if you can play that one, because that's like our money being shipped off.
Canada's provided $750 million to FinDev Canada for loans for green infrastructure projects, including in Southeast Asia. For example, a $59 million project supporting Thailand's renewable energy transition through the construction of solar technology and battery storage, 40 million in another project to support climate finance initiatives in Vietnam, just as a couple of examples. Also working very closely with regional partners such as the Asian Development Bank to support energy transition to renewable sources, including support for a 600 megawatt wind farm in Lao PDR. Canada's provided.
There you go. I don't know where we keep coming up with money to send it off to other countries. Like, we have this huge deficit.
Yeah, demand.
Is this, so we just look in the cupboard there and just like, Alberta, you got any more to give? It's just.
Well, I mean, Alberta is literally like just about the only province in Canada that's solvent. Never mind, got money to hand around. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot. We're laughing about it, but probably, yeah, the answer actually probably is Alberta.
John just contributed and also said that India just struck a deal with Trump, and it's India's agreed to buy U.S. oil, trade barriers pulled down, and all kinds of stuff. It looks like India's on the deal-making spirit. And I also just went on X and found a Truth Social, and it turns out that it is Trump saying that it's an honor to speak with Modi. And they did make a deal, and it has to do with American energy again, more American energy. And guess what American energy does not come with? Any guesses? CCUS. No CCUS.
So he says, Trump says, and I'm just looking at this truth now, he says he agreed to stop buying Russian oil and to buy much more oil from the United States. Interesting. But I mean, Italy's, India's relationship with Russia is way beyond oil. That's,
yeah,
you know, that's not even the real beef, yeah. the meat of the thing. It's weapons. That's what they.
Three of them, all three of them, China, India,
for Russians.
China, India, and Russia. I mean, that arrangement between the three of them is pretty tight as well.
Well, the Indians, they're trying to have it both ways. They always have. And it's understandable that they would attempt to do that. Makes geopolitical sense. But the Americans are kind of nagging at them and trying to get them to peel away from Russia and India.
But Constantine there, we've played Constantine quite a few times on this show. He lays it out pretty easy. I mean, and you've said it many times. If you want to look to the future of Canada, look no further than Britain. They're just a couple years ahead of us. And similar policies, similar everything. It's going to be similar results. Ian came back to Canada because you had to choose what time of the day you're going to put your heat on. And electricity prices there through the roof. And again, which do you choose for your nation? Do you choose prosperity, or do you choose an ideological policy that benefits the few at the expense of the many? Especially,
sorry, I'm just incapable of thinking because somebody just called me a good lad. That's that means a lot. I feel it in my heart. But yeah, just to talk about Britain. Britain is quite literally the stupidest country on this planet, or at least its elite. It has the stupidest elite in the world. Stupider than, like, name a country. Maybe North Korea. I'll give you North Korea. Other than North Korea, the British elite, it's the stupidest elite on this planet. They are so foolish. And I really wish that we could have heard the response from Douglas Alexander, who was an old minister, I believe, in the Blair government. That was the chap that, what's his name, was talking to, the Russian fella. I would love to have heard his response because, you know, we've said that many, many times, haven't we? And that's exactly the kind of question or point that is never put to the Liberals in this country. But did you hear the way that he said, the Labour fella, the politician, he said, do you mean now or in history? He said something like that, didn't he? How ridiculous are these people that's how they think? They think like, oh yeah, 1875, there was a lot of CO2 emissions coming out of the Birmingham and Newcastle areas. That we got to factor that in. Like, what are you talking about? What kind of worldview is that? It's so ridiculous. It's such a stupid, an unforgivably stupid way to think. So I very much would have liked to have seen his response, but I imagine it would have leaned into that. It would have been saying something like, we were the first country to industrialize. That's all accumulated over the decades and centuries. And so we owe the world, as the first country to industrialize, we owe the world. We should show the world that we're going to be the first one to get net zero and things like that. I mean, can you imagine thinking like that? What a crazy way to see the world.
Someone said, I'm a good lad as well, and thank you for all of that. That's great. We're a couple of lads there just trying to get the truth out to you. So if you could like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and, you know, share this far and wide. I think you're going to learn more here in this hour and a half, 2 hours that we do this than you're going to learn on CBC probably in a month. Well, unless you're really into narratives. And there you go. Vax files. Closed for 15 years. Just when you thought there was some accountability from COVID, not so much. Health Minister Marjorie Michaels' department has sealed internal reports on vaccine and drug injuries for 15 years. So you can find out in 15 years. Holly Dona Blacklocks there. You're not gonna find anything out for 50. Isn't that just atrocious? 15 years. Several million pages. It sounds like the Epstein files. Why? Why is the question? The disclosure came and an inquiry to the ministry table in Commons regarding unusual extensions on the release of access to information files. Health Canada longest extension from among its currently active requests is 15 years. 15 years. 15 years.
When nobody will really care about it.
15 years.
And lots of the people that might sue as well will have either died or just given up. Why not, eh?
This is the most unaccountable, least transparent government that I can ever remember. Remember how they went after Stephen Harper for a glass of orange juice? You can't even access records with this government. Remember, we just did the story, what was it, a month ago now, 2 weeks ago? Where they're going to delete emails now and WhatsApp things or whatever after 15
Teams
days.
as well, which is what they actually use. Teams is their weapon of choice.
This is the government that runs on transparency. Even Carney said it in his platform. They're going to be transparent and accountable. No, you're not. 15 years. People should be outraged. This should outrage people. 15 years. We've asked for just Facebook spends. We've asked for Facebook spends. They said we could have it in a year.
Lovely.
Well, what they do tell you, the feds confirm pro-Castro talk. Farm Credit Canada confirms it's, get this, ready for this? $458,000 CEO. That's what she makes. In a speech to staff, praised Fidel Castro as an impressive and visionary leader. That's the CEO of Farm Credit Canada. The Crown Bank had no comment on the remarks made by Justine Hendricks, who also praised Communist Party of Cuba. You have to laugh, right? Because
it's
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
How did they, seriously, I've admired his courage and, you know, how he stuck to his values. Believe it or not, it's Fidel Castro. You know, if you've ever read about Fidel Castro or the Cuban Revolution, one of the things you will know is that he was, how can I phrase this? Not particularly friendly to the LGBT community. Let's use language that somebody like that could understand. But she likes his values. This is the thing. How do you square the circle? How do you do it? How do you bring consistency to this kind of thing? And really, I don't think there's any attempt. I don't think they care even slightly.
Selective history. That's why it's selective. Selective memory.
Or maybe what you often get is, oh yeah, he was pretty terrible to gay people, but that was something to do with American social norms, imperialist capitalist norms, which were still lingering in Cuba at that time. There's just always an excuse, isn't there? I mean, you've got to earn that $458,000 a year, I suppose.
Well, the International Human Rights Watch in 2025 report depicted Cuba as a ruthless dictatorship where publishing social media posts critical of the ruling party was a felony punishable by torture and 15 years imprisonment. That's starting to sound like Britain. The government continues to repress and punish virtually all forms of dissent and public criticism. Human Rights Watch documented some 1,000 political prisoners in Cuban custody, including children. Acute shortages of food, medicine, and other essential items, and infrastructure so decayed, power blackouts lasted up to 20 hours daily. Cubans continue to leave the country by large numbers. According to official figures, the Cuban population shrank by 10% between 2021 and 2023. But this $458,000 bureaucrat, don't forget her bonus, and tons of expenses, probably banging on the door $750,000 a year, likely, praises Fidel Castro. And obviously likely has TDS at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, what did she like about him? What do you actually like about Fidel Castro, this communist revolutionary who beggared and crippled his country and put millions and millions of people through endless misery that continues to this day? What is it that you like about that kind of a guy, I wonder?
She's probably all keen to release. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I want to say the name and see if I get it right. Nicolas Maduro.
That's good.
Did I get that right? Did I get that right? Like CNN, like the CNN host. Nicolas Maduro needs to be released.
I find that so funny because then they'll go on straight away and they'll pronounce someone else's name and just get it completely or they'll do it in a completely Americanized way. It's just, for some reason, it's just like, Latin America where they do this.
This is another story from Hollywood on Black Lux. I mean, subscribe to Hollywood on Black Lux. Go to Black Lux, subscribe. I think it's like $360 a year. Some of the best reporting in Canada. They go out after all these FOIs, and obviously the government doesn't like it. That's why they're sealing the records for 15 years. That should just infuriate everyone. You should pick up a keyboard, whatever it is, and phone your MP. That's ridiculous. The biggest thing that happened in Canada, COVID, they don't want that to see the light of day. We need this government changed. We need this government changed so we can get some transparency and accountability. We will not get anything while this government still suppresses all the records and accountability and transparency and continues to fund the CBC, the shield of the Liberal Party. How's that for a soapbox preach there?
I've just read on, while you're on your soapbox there, one of my dolphin eyes, half of my dolphin brain, was looking at this woman here trying to justify her love of Fidel Castro. And she said, hey, I'm not saying it's the perfect system. And then goes on to say, this small country, which has had all sorts of challenges, has over the years kind of survived and stood up to some pretty big people in the world. So reading between the lines, that's just pure anti-Americanism, isn't it? Because Fidel Castro stood up to the Americans, therefore he must be great. I mean, how many people could you sort of summarize their worldview as that? And I'm sorry to say, particularly in this country, where it's like, did he hate America? Did he stand up to America? All right, well, he must be all right then. He must be a good guy. It's just it's so low grade, isn't it? This is just bottom feeding, isn't it, in the intellectual world?
Yeah, Barrett says smokescreen. CBC is a smokescreen. No, they're better. They're more than that. They're a shield. They're a beard for the Liberal Party. They're the shield. They block access to the Liberals. They block access. They say, oh, no, we talked to the CBC. That's their, and the CBC obviously carries the water for the Liberal Party. And here we go. Defense Minister David McGuinty has vetoed a recommendation by MPs to freeze rents on military housing. Money was required to upgrade accommodation on military bases that failed that audit. Remember, we told you that. 14 places, 7 of them didn't even have safe drinking water, running toilets, and the walls are deteriorating. But McGuinty says he disagrees with that recommendation, and revenues are important for the maintenance upkeep of Department of National Defense properties. Well, you ain't doing it. Ain't a word, but he ain't doing it. So Cabinet in 24 hiked rents on military housing by an average of 4.2. Typical rents on military bases was 972 a month prior to the increase. Underpaid, underfunded, underhoused, and underappreciated. Let's go with that. Underappreciated as well. Why don't you stop spending money on, what was that, $273,000 Greg Fergus spent in a year just on junkets? $273,000, Greg Fergus, in junkets in a year. Meanwhile, the military get to sleep in accommodations that doesn't have safe drinking water and running toilets. And you know what? For that, we're going to increase the rents. Can you imagine that? What they would do, like the NDP here in BC would do that to, they would call them slum landlords. You know what I mean? They would seize the properties from the slum landlords. Basically, is the government a slum landlord? They're raising the rents, and they can't even provide accommodation according to the auditor that's fit to live in. The Canadian government, slum landlords for the military. You heard it here first.
That's nice, but also, I'll not rant again, as I've done many times in the past, but another example of the kind of low-grade class warfare that is waged against Canada's military and the people that serve in it for some reason. It's just looked at as déclassé, isn't it? It's looked at as like, you know, and therefore they can deal with things like this. They can live in this kind of filth and squalor.
McGuinty defended the increase. The housing agency reviews rental costs cross-country annually and makes adjustments to reflect charges in the local market. Meanwhile, residential housing units remain unaffordable for the Canadian Armed Forces member and family, wrote McGuinty. Occupants are protected from being charged more than 25% of their annual gross household income and can request a rent reduction anytime. But some buildings were in poor condition, lacking basic amenities such as safe drinking water and working toilets. That's from the Auditor General. Slum landlords. If I was David Eby, that's what I would say. What can you throw around treason? Canadian government, slum landlords for the military. Approximately 25% of the existing infrastructure is greater than 50 years old and requires significant maintenance, repair, and recapitalization. Good enough for our military, though, right? Probably better off in a tent.
These people that they pretend to be so bothered about as well, you know, it's just such humbug, isn't it?
And then we have extremists that are in our government, and this extremist has done so much damage to the Canadian economy. This one person here has caused so much grief and pain for so many Canadians in jobs, in the economy in general. Just this one man here. A cabinet order blacklisting all plastic goods as toxic was simply, and this is from the courts, simply an enabling provision, says the Federal Court of Appeal. Judges upheld the 2021 order by the Environment Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, but acknowledged more legal challenges are possible. And this is, you know, we're banning plastics here in Canada. We can't use them, straws, plastic straws and that, but we can now manufacture them and sell them to the Americans. You can't even make this stuff up, right?
Steve does. He knows how to make it up. He's been making it up his whole life, hasn't he?
The proposed amendments would minimize economic losses. That's from Minister when she wrote there, the Canadian plastic industry generated about $35 billion a year. So that's when they defended that we can sell it to somebody else, but we sure can't use it.
But it's just, how is this different? I mean, in many ways, this is less bad, I would say, than the idea that we need to destroy our economy and the quality of life of everybody in this country, basically, so that we can remove or bring down the 1.5% or so of emissions that Canada is responsible for. It's the same, like, none of this adds up. None of it adds up.
And Stephen,
I find that about a lot of environmental extremism. It's the same stuff over and over again, and it always leads to the same thing: poverty, with bad, and doesn't even achieve its stated aims. And that includes like trying to protect gorillas and stuff like that. They fail at that. They fail at even like the easy, low-hanging stuff. And then the big stuff, like CO2 emissions, energy, it's just a failure.
Why won't Stephen? Why is there no pressure to release those documents? That there was alleged that he funneled $250 million into his companies. We still don't have those documents. We still don't have answers. It seems odd that a lot of
been forgotten about, hasn't it? Even though that's what gridlocked Parliament.
It seems odd that all these policies seem to benefit the few. Even if you look at Mark Carney's connections to Brookfield, there seems to be always a connection to Brookfield. There always seems to be something. And these climate policies seem to benefit certain people, but at the expense of the population. And here's
it benefits those people. They make millions, and then they invest in the United States, for example, a massive sort of fossil fuel power, which is unapologetically in favor of fossil fuel.
Are you talking about?
That makes sense.
Are you talking about somebody in general? that is Mark Carney himself. And this is another case for extremists. So we put Stephen Guilbeault is an environmental extremist, and he's been in charge. He tried to even sell that the Jasper fire was climate change, and it turns out that he was wrong on that as well. But here's BC Green's leader just spewing nonsense, but she continues to do it. And then nobody calls her out on it. Just we'll call her out. Let's play a clip here from Emily Lowen, BC Green leader.
So when I first announced the boycott on Pattison, I had hundreds of people message me because in their community, he has an effective monopoly on the food supply. Every grocery store is owned by Pattison. And it caused this moment of public reckoning and awakening that, why should one billionaire own our food supply? And it's clear that there's all this price gouging going on, and they're exploiting workers, and then they're using their record profits to buy up warehouses in Virginia. And so it was a real moment for I think British Columbians to say that they want a different option. They want a public option for groceries. There's tons of examples worldwide of this functioning very well, even in some parts of the States and in Mexico, in Paris, where they are treating access to food as a human right, and that's
good.
Sophisticated analysis, as usual, from the Green Party there.
It's like a high school book report written with, getting together instead of consulting the encyclopedia, just getting together with 5 other buddies that have just smoked up on weed or something like that and just making up stuff.
I do sort of I do wonder what is the motivation? Is it jealousy? Is it ignorance? I'm interested in the psychology, because I think that's about the only interesting thing about people like her is the psychology. The politics is dead, ancient, done that, tried that. Nobody wants to do that again. You're wasting our time with that sort of thing. But the psychology fascinates me.
And just the fraud, waste, and abuse, and the non-transparency. So I'm going to put this clip in here just to show you what AI can do and how it can find this fraud, waste, and abuse. And this is what Elon Musk did for the Americans here. You can just look at some of this fraud, waste, and abuse that it's uncovered. Just absolutely atrocious. You know why? Your tax, you got to keep paying more tax because there's people in there skimming dollars off there. Again, Greg Fergus, $273,000. And then sealed records, sealed this, sealed that. Stephen Guilbeault, show us the records. Tough guy, show us. Let's play this clip here. One Californian physician, $120 million billing a year. Nice. It's been a hell of a doctor, right?
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients. With almost 2,000 hospice agencies, LA County has more than 36 states combined, and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole.
That's good. You can go watch that yourself. But 18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of the Los Angeles County. That must be the hotbed of healthcare. One county in LA. Hey?
Yeah, so we got Minneapolis and Los Angeles now really punching above their weight.
Isn't that crazy? But this is what the AI can do. It can find this fraud. I mean, a lot of the stuff that when Elon was digging into it, there was checks being sent there with no description on what it was for, just to pay to. Who cares? Really, who cares, right? Who cares?
Well, I mean, even talking about it is that should bring shame. You should be ashamed just for talking about it.
I should be ashamed, or who should be ashamed? We should all be ashamed.
That was the initial weapon that they employed, wasn't it, with the Minneapolis thing? It's like, why are you even talking about this? Like, you must be a racist.
Yeah, screw the taxpayer. Well, that taxpayer is getting screwed almost every day, and then they don't want to release any of the records, and just atrocious. But this is Jason Jacks again, sitting in committee hearing there, saying that Carney's budget, we won't play the clip just in the interest of time, but Carney's budget there on the Capitol and that, nobody else on the planet's doing that. But you know how Francois, he said that we're going to change it up and then we're going to put the investment in there and this and that and everything's going to be great. I'm getting better at everything going to be great. Everybody.
The content was accurate.
Why you want to follow accounting standards? That's just for, you know, people that, I think I went somewhere else there now, but
he ended up in Russia, didn't he, after his sojourn in Quebec.
Just unbelievable. And yet, there you say it in committee, Jason Jack said it, and then they're just like, oh yeah, moving on. But Carney also says Carney's GST boost will cost taxpayers $12 billion. $12 billion over 5 years, according to the estimate from the parliamentary budget officer. Said he would be judged by the grocery stores. And we said this a few days ago. You've been weighed and measured and come up short. That's an old English saying, right? Weighed and measured and you've come up short.
We talked about it, didn't we, last week? It's from Daniel. It's from the Bible.
Yeah. It's absolutely atrocious. Again, crumbs for a few, and it's not enough to make a difference either. It's just a few crumbs for a few. Instead of working on lowering grocery prices and the monopolies in Canada. I mean, Emily Loan has, like, she has a shred of the truth in there, a shred, where we have too many monopolies. We have like 3 major monopolies in the grocery store business, 3 major monopolies. We need to fix that, right? But it's hard for small business to compete. Open the doors up to let the American grocers in and get rid of the supply management. Those are the things. That's what she should be campaigning. Get rid of supply management. She wouldn't dare touch that one, though, would she? Supply management is what's crushing people for milk, eggs, poultry, all that kind of stuff. And they won't touch that, right? That's a political hotbed for them. The cell phone companies, like we don't have decent cell phone coverage. Everybody complains in Canada about the cell phone coverage. It's absolutely atrocious. Lots of time when I talk to Ian, you have to like stand at the window. We're on a tower here on the 16th floor. Basically have to lean against the window to get cell phone coverage here. Open it up. We're probably one of the few countries that's still paying, the average person is still paying over $100 a month for cell phone coverage. It's absolutely atrocious. And the other big monopoly in Canada is banking. We have a link that we put in there all the time. Go to Wealthsimple, zero, absolutely zero banking fees. And you can trade stocks, no transactional fees. You can buy gold and you can buy Bitcoin. You can do all kinds of stuff. Why are you paying fees? Get out of the banks. Go to Wealthsimple. We'll put the link in there and it gets you $25. If you use our link, you get $25 when you open your account with Wealthsimple. We'll put that link in there. You can put it in the comments here too as well. That'd be great. It's just ridiculous, all these monopolies. That's what she should be working on instead of like espousing some stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, but the problem is your argument. You're coming out with an argument essentially in favor of a free market. Canada doesn't really have a free market. It's not really a proper free market economy. But if you know, to her ears, to the ears of the kind of you know, whatever she is, sort of halfway to communism. What? I don't know if you could even give it a name, her ideology. But to them, that's even worse. That's worse than the present situation in Canada, because the free market they look at as basically like Nazism or something. It's like the Nazism of economics that's going to come and destroy everything. But the truth is, and all we have to do is look south of the border or some of the countries that actually have free markets or freer markets. You can see the evidence. You can see that they can have cheaper things, and it's competition that does it.
Here's another deal being announced. We're getting close. Canada nears $3 billion uranium deal with India, maybe inked in March, maybe. But again, if you look through the fine print, guess who's involved? That's the part that's troubling. And where's Rosie Barton asking about these conflicts of interest? Where's Rosie Barton? Because this is linked to none other than, at the end of the day, Brookfield. Where's Rosie Barton asking about all these conflicts of interest? I mean, maybe there's nothing to it, but what? We should ask the question. I would ask the question. Seems odd.
Yeah. But to her, that's like crass. That's like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory talking about Brookfield. This is how it works, I think. This is how it's such like it's like a self-policing regime almost, isn't it? Regime of thought or lack of thought.
They would say, now's not the time. We're at war with the United States. Now's not the time for accountability. When is the time for accountability? When shall it be time for accountability? Because we're told not during COVID, not during this, not during that, not during this. So never is the time, according to the Liberals and the government corrupted and crippled media. Never is the time. And anyway, another announcement, another MOU. Let's listen to this. Because you know what? If we had MOUs and photo ops, we're killing it. We're killing it in MOUs and photo ops.
Sources have told CTV News Ottawa has signed a memorandum of understanding with South Korea to bring auto manufacturing to Canada. The MOU, which is not binding, calls for closer industrial cooperation on the future of mobility. This includes talks on the auto sector. It was signed by Industry Minister Melanie Joly and her South.
Sources tell me.
Did you hear the excitement? Did you hear the exhilaration in her voice? Memorandum of understanding. But then she had to say, which is not binding, so it doesn't matter really.
Sources tell me we've got a lot of MOUs, and Melanie Joly has a lot of people that are going to be out of work, and she should dole out her phone number so they can phone her, and she can explain to them how she's going to have their back. Like Gary
does that.
Gary on the Sangria there, he gives out his phone number to his tenants, and they get to phone him, and he makes them whole. So maybe Melanie Joly will do the same thing.
Yeah, that would be nice. She's got the cash, hasn't she?
And this is a weird one. It's just amazing, you know. CBC and them covered, you know, like these ICE protests, and you can see it from the crowd here that, you know, it's a few hundred people, I guess. That, you know, they were standing outside a Hootsuite and all that kind of stuff. But there was also that freedom from Mark Carney or something, or some kind of like Carney and the Liberal. I can't remember what it was called. But we sent a reporter out to cover that one too, and it was about 100 people or so. So we didn't do anything with it because it was just a small rally. But they didn't do that one either. But they sure did this one. This one makes the news. The other one doesn't. Almost the same size, but selective protests. That's the point. Selective protests that get media attention. There's Global Montreal showing you the ICE protests. They didn't show you the anti-Carney protests that happened, you know, in several Canadian cities, but they sure showed you the ICE protests. Why not, right? And then Wab Canoe is trying to play the moral high ground too. Manitoba Premier there says Canada should attempt to use morals to destabilize the United States as trade negotiations between the two countries continue. What? Like, what is he even saying? Referring to the U.S.'s immigration policies, if we are the voice of moral clarity, we can destabilize Trump heading into the negotiations at a moral level. I think him and Emily Lohan must have had a meeting.
Also, has he learned nothing? This is exactly the kind of thing that Trump seizes on. You know, might not be today, might not be in a week, 2 weeks, but just like the Doug Ford ad, the Ontario ad, this is the kind of thing that he'll seize upon and he'll say, what, are you trying to destabilize the United States? there's a tariff. You know, it's kind of, I wonder if that's the right approach. But it's also kind of, it's like he's said that he's been explicit with what should have been implicit. I think he probably wanted to hint at that in a more kind of subtle fashion, but instead he just like out and out said it. It's like, this is the strategy. We'll use our morality, our morals, whatever that means from a Canadian perspective, to basically embarrass him and destabilize America. So like, I guess that's to sort of lean into the protests and things like that, the protest movement in the US, and hope that like Canada can somehow come out of that well. It's just very, very odd, but also very Machiavellian. I think he wanted to wrap that up in plainer language.
Yeah. It seems like so many politicians in Canada are more about virtue signaling, like Chrystia Freeland said, identity politics and virtue signaling, instead of like getting down to like, how do we get something done? Like, we should worry about our own thing. Like, let's dig some holes. Let's do some stuff. Instead, we're doing this and we play to the media. It's just like, who can get media attention today on virtue signaling? Wob, where's some stuff going on? Like, get some stuff going. Just focus. That's my words. We got a little bit of finance stuff here for you. Netflix is $72 billion bid for Warner Brothers there. It could be the biggest all-cash deal on record. There you go. Warner Brothers. And the other one was Microsoft when it bought Activision and so on, and like different ones there. Rio Tinto bought Alcan. This is all cash. So lots of the deals are always made in shares and cash, or just shares. But this is an all-cash deal. But here's the more interesting piece. The Y Combinator says it won't invest in Canadian startups that won't leave Canada. There's some news for you. The world's most lionized incubator, Airbnb, Stripe, Coinbase, quietly changed its deals and now requires Canadian startups to reincorporate in the United States, the Cayman or Singapore. Not necessarily relocate, but that's the big difference. But it's because of the access to money. And that's the same thing we've been saying. That's why Carney went there. Mark Carney took Brookfield to New York. Why? Access to capital. There's a problem in Canada. There is a problem in Canada. Uncertainty, bad regulation, bad policy, weakness of leadership. It's all right there. All right there. Mark Carney knows it himself. Mark Carney did it himself. And yet they don't change any of it. They change none of it. And not the province or the territory. None of it, though. None of it gets changed.
I mean, it is hard to change that. Access to capital, isn't it? I mean, that's some...
Well,
this happens all over the world. The European companies as well. When they get some really big, successful companies, they just get snatched up by the Yankees these days. And it's their glorious well of capital that they have.
There was a time when a lot of people would invest in Canada. The TSX used to have a lot of stuff going on here in Canada when we were building the resource sector. There was one of the reasons that miners came from all around the world. They came to Canada to raise capital for mining operations. The TSX was that vehicle. Not anymore. Not anymore. Choked off. Here's the top 100 countries by nominal GDP projected for 2026. And the United States, this is like, when we're looking to make trade deals, this is the one to look at. When they start naming some of these small countries and they're going to do a trade deal with, like Ireland or something like that. You just have to look at their, the nominal GDP and say, what can we really get out of them? What can we really get out of them?
Yeah. Japan, blimey. I mean, what's happened in Japan is, it's a lesson for everyone, really, isn't it? Like, if you're chasing GDP, Japan's relative GDP has declined. Like, it's just mind-blowing how much it's declined. They used to be second. They used to be way, way ahead of the British. And if you look, they're nearly equals now. But the lesson from Japan is, don't obsess about GDP, because Japan's GDP has crashed and burned, whereas the British one has sort of kept pace with trends. And Britain is a dysfunctional country. It's a disaster zone at the minute, whereas Japan is Japan. It's just what it's always been,
And here's just a visual representation for the people that like visuals. There you go, some visuals. There's Canada underneath the the United States, the little blue box there, or purple, whatever color that is. And for the colorblind myself, I think it's a purple, right?
Mexico hot in our heels.
Hot in our heels, yeah. Now the biggest trading partner in the United States. They took our spot over. I was going to play this clip, but we're going to have John Carpay jump in any second here now. So as far as I know. Ray Dalio says the US dollar and other fiat currencies are coming to an end. Ray Dalio has been saying that for a long time, though. I follow Ray Dalio, a hedge fund manager. So at some point, a stopwatch will be right. So Ray Dalio has been saying that for a long time. But it is a good reason to have gold and silver, and I'm a big fan of both of those, right? So, and you know, like the countries like have an active policy, like, you know, when you hear the Fed policy that they want to have inflation at 2%, that means they're devaluing the dollar at 2% a year. That is a planned devaluation of the currency. So for those that are into that. But here's a little commercial here from Doug Ford. Isn't going to like this. Flip-flop Ford. Listen in, Flip-flop Ford on Starlink. Let's just listen to this. He's going to play in the Super Bowl.
Mission control, all systems are go.
Flight deck, engaging new Wi-Fi in 3, 2, 1.
We're live and lag-free.
It's the fastest, most reliable high-speed Wi-Fi in the sky.
So it's Wi-Fi that actually works?
Affirmative.
Copy. That's one giant leap for in-flight Wi-Fi. Did we mention it's free?
Did we mention Doug Ford that it works? Doug, I've had Starlink on my house for a couple of years, and Doug Ford kiboshed the Starlink deal that would have got internet to rural parts of Ontario for virtue signaling. And then what is he going to use? Telesat? Is Telesat that company we talked about a couple of days ago that is going to hiding its assets from creditors? Is that the one? Is that the one?
Did you see that? There was an amazing, like, remarkable, fascinating comment, or series of comments made by the CEO of Ryanair, I believe, who's having a spat with Elon Musk. And he said, I don't want Starlink on my planes because of the drag, because it will slow down, because you have to put something like a radar or whatever it is, satellite dish, yeah, just for it to function. And he says that will cause hundreds of millions of dollars in extra fuel or something every year, so it's not worth it. And then he said Elon Musk doesn't know anything about aerodynamics. That's the most interesting rejection I've seen of Starlink, I must say.
You know, Ryanair, I think sometimes you have to pay to use the toilet on their plane, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock into what the CEO of Ryanair has to say. Like, I mean,
yeah, they charge you for everything.
You'd be lucky if you get a seat on that plane, so I wouldn't be too worried about Ryanair. It's basically a bus with wings, and yeah.
Well, buses are much more comfortable.
And I've seen the dishes that are on top there. I mean, if that's causing the drag, maybe don't mount it up, Mr. Ryanair CEO. Maybe just lay it flat.
You got to fold it down.
Oh, I got actually a Starlink dish on my car. So
Starlink, how much is that costing you, I wonder, a year?
Starlink Global Communications, the largest global communications company in the world, by far. And they have actually satellites in the sky right now, I think around 10,000. How many you got going on up there, Telesat? How many? Hey, Doug, how's it going? How's it going, Doug? How's it going? How's that virtue signaling going? Because you're really good at it. Doug is really good. We got to get Doug on the show. You got to ask Doug.
Well, if I can meet him somewhere, I'm sure he'll give me his number, because he hands it out to everybody.
Does he? Well, there you go. So if John Carpay jumps in, we're going to have him jump in. I'm going to see if he said anything here. I don't have anything, so expecting him to jump in any second here. We'll just go right to him once he does jump in. You're ready for him? Desert Fox? Google CEO reveals their AI startup doing... What's that? Anyway, Google CEO reveals their AI startup doing things it was not programmed to do. Imagine that. Remember that movie, 2001 Space Odyssey? HAL? But anyway...
I watched that recently, actually. It holds up very well.
It does. It's a great show. Let's listen in on HAL here.
AI systems are teaching themselves skills that they weren't expected to have. How this happens is not well understood. For example, one Google AI program adapted on its own after it was prompted in the language of Bangladesh, which...
That's good. We're going to jump to John Carpay here. Hey, John.
Hi, good morning.
We're going to bring you in live here. We're just going to fix your screen here. That's Ian Burns. You haven't met Ian before, so you're going to be on with Ian and I here as we do this segment. We got you part of the really big show now. So look at that, and you're in the middle.
Yeah,
you are the topic. I'm flattered.
There you go. We're just in the middle of the show, but we're going to jump right to you. You sent out that report, and
yes,
Canada now has a dubious distinction of being a global leader in assisted suicide. So maybe just give us kind of like a background on that report you just released.
So very briefly, brief historical overview. 1993, the Supreme Court of Canada in the Rodriguez case upheld the criminal code prohibition on helping another person to commit suicide. This had been in place for generations, if not for centuries. Obviously, if it's legal to help somebody to kill themselves, you get into problems because you could see the guy there with the smoking gun and saying, yeah, but she wanted to commit suicide. So a bit of a practical problem there. But the Supreme Court in 1993 said, no, sanctity of human life is important, and it's very dangerous to open the door to making it legal to help somebody to commit suicide. However, only 22 years later, the Supreme Court of Canada reversed itself, and in the Carter decision, they said that the Charter's right to life includes the right to kill yourself, and that you should be able to get assistance from a doctor. The plan was that this would be exceedingly rare. It would not be abused. This would be somebody who's terminally ill. They're going to die in the next few days, the next few weeks, the next few months. They're terminally ill. They're in extreme pain. They're not capable of committing suicide themselves. They actually need a doctor's help. Maybe they've got Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, which was the case for Sue Rodriguez. Anyway, Parliament then changed the criminal code. It became legal to help somebody to kill themselves. And in the first full year that we had legalized assisted suicide in Canada, which was 2017, just under 3,000 Canadians committed suicide with a doctor's help. 2024, the most recent year for which we have data, 16,499 Canadians killed themselves with a doctor's assistance. So we went from 3,000 to 16,500, and we are now on track. The law currently in place is set to change in March of 2027. In about 13 months' time, it will become legal for mentally ill people, including depressed people, to ask for assisted suicide and to receive that from a doctor. So that's a brief historical overview from 1993 to where we are today, where it's widespread. It's the fourth leading cause of death. We're number 2 in the world after the Netherlands in terms of being the suicide capital. We're not quite there, but we're a global leader in assisted suicide as the 4th largest cause of death in Canada. And that's where we're at.
There was that hospital in Vancouver that I think was a Catholic hospital there that refused to perform the maid service, and then they're being sued. Can you shed any light on that?
St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver, it's a Catholic hospital. They don't believe in assisted suicide or abortion, euthanasia, sterilization, whatever. In my view, they've bent over backwards. They do provide information about assisted suicide to patients. And if any patient wants MAID, medical assistance in dying, I think assisted suicide is more accurate, but either term. If a patient wants MAID, St. Paul's will facilitate their transfer to another hospital or another facility that will provide it. So they're compromising that. If they were taking a hard line, they would say, they wouldn't even provide information about it and they wouldn't facilitate a transfer. But they're providing information, facilitating to transfer. But for Dying with Dignity Canada, which is a pro-suicide group, that's not good enough. they've gone to court. There's a court action underway to get a court order to compel Catholic Hospital to actually provide assisted suicide in the Catholic Hospital. So the Justice Center, our lawyers are involved in that case. We are acting on behalf of the Delta Hospice Society, which is a palliative care hospice in British Columbia that was shut down by the provincial government over its refusal to provide assisted suicide. They say we want to provide a place where people can get comfort and care and support from family. The patients that come here, they don't want to be offered assisted suicide, and the provincial government shut them down.
The change in 2027 with allowing people with depression and that to use MAID, isn't that like just one huge giant leap forward though? Because I mean, lots of times people come out of depression, it's a temporary thing. And then if you're in that situation, are you making the best decision? Like it seems to have a whole bunch of questions that go on unanswered.
It puts the doctors and psychiatrists and other doctors in a horrible place, because up until now, if a person wants to kill themselves, that is classified as a mental illness, right? If I want to kill myself, I am mentally ill. How do you help me? You help me to overcome my mental illness and get to a place where I no longer want to kill myself. So now, March 2027, it's going to be horrible for psychiatrists and psychologists, counselors, medical doctors, where, you know, up until now, we've always treated suicidal ideation as a mental illness, right? If you want to kill yourself, you are mentally ill. And the cure is to help you to get to a place where you no longer want to kill yourself. So, you know, unless Canadians speak up forcefully and contact their MPs, this is going to be the new reality in 13 months' time. And I think you're going to see the numbers climb from 16,499 to, I don't even want to think about it. I think the numbers will really rise if we don't stop this from happening in March of 2027.
Because right now, if you say you're going to kill yourself, they actually will put you in care to stop you from doing that, and say you're a danger to yourself and others. And now they're going to say, sure, you can just go in this room.
Yep, we'll get the paperwork done, and now there's something you didn't see 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There's advocacy for involuntary suicide. There was Dr. Louis Roy of the Collège des Médecins du Québec, the Quebec College of Physicians and Surgeons, testified before a parliamentary committee that severely disabled infants up to the age of 1 should be euthanized. And we should also consider euthanasia for seniors who are not thriving. And we really need to look into that. And that's a complete departure. When the Supreme Court struck down the criminal code prohibition on assisted suicide, their rationale was autonomy and choice. You know, you are a human being, and your right to life includes a right to manage your life and to end your life. It was all about personal autonomy. Now we got talk about, you know, offering it to depressed people and euthanizing infants and seniors.
So this is a new feature we're doing on the Really Big Show, where we're bringing guests live into the show, and we're going to go back to our news after John is the interview is over with John. We do thank John for jumping in with us, and you can find information on this report here. It is on the JCCF website. I think we can get the Desert Fox to bring that up, jccf.ca. There's the report there. Ian, you got any questions for John?
I've got a couple, yeah. The first one is, do you really think Mark Carney would allow the mental health option? You know, given his attitude, people are calling him a pragmatist, and that he's much less of a radical than Justin Trudeau.
Well, so sometimes laws have a timetable built in where, you know, some, like I think with the legalization of marijuana, there was different things, different dates, and, you know, it's going to become fully legal on such and such a date. So the law in place right now is that it will become legal to offer assisted suicide to depressed people in March of 2027. That's the law that's now in place. If Mark Carney and his government, you know, or Parliament in general, if they want to change that, they actually have to, if they do nothing, this is set to go into force in 13 months' time. Now, they can change the law and say, we're not doing this at all. Or, they might say, we're going to bump the start date until, 2029 or 2030. But if nothing is done, this will become the new reality in 13 months.
I'm just thinking because Mark Holland was the health minister, wasn't he? He did delay it, didn't he? That was, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Considering I would consider them to be way more out there, both of Mark Holland and also Justin Trudeau, than Mark Carney. So I would think he would be reluctant to do that. But I suppose, I mean, yeah, that's down to the whims of politics, really, isn't it? But my other question is an extremely awkward one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. People have pointed this out a lot. I don't have any kind of agenda here, but I'm still going to mention it. 95.6% in 2024 were classed as Caucasian or white of people that selected MAID. In the previous year, it was 95.8. So it's declined by 0.2%. And I looked through the data here, and it's absolutely not proportionate to the groups. They split it into East Asian. They say 7 people of the Inuit population chose MAID, 57 from Métis, 102 from First Nations. It does not match. And obviously, the age, it's much more likely that an older person is going to seek MAID, and the white population is way older than the other demographics. I understand that. But it's still not in proportion. So I'm quite interested by that. There's clearly a cultural divide, isn't there? And it's huge, to the point where this is almost a policy for one ethnic group. And usually the Canadian government, particularly the Liberals, they're very interested in this kind of thing. They're very interested in racial disparities and that kind of thing. I was just wondering if you have any comment on that, any idea maybe why that's the case?
Well, the cynical, sarcastic part of my brain would question whether the government's going to have a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign to encourage ethnic minorities and visible minorities to take advantage of their eligibility, as they now call it. You're eligible for this. I had no idea. I'm not totally surprised, but I had no idea about any ethnic breakdown in this. So I don't know what to say.
I just feel your point that you made, that's exactly what I thought too. Is like, you look at these numbers of particularly First Nations, the category of Indigenous, usually they would go out, wouldn't they? They go out and do commercials and things, and like First Nations, not enough First Nations people are taking advantage of MAID. But I think that highlights the moral ambiguity, doesn't it? The fact that we laugh about it because they never would, because they understand that that's morally not acceptable. I just feel like that's quite intriguing.
Well, this ties in this whole the sarcastic comment about the advertising campaign, but what is of interest, what's become very prevalent, is how frequently patients are being presented. Do you want MAID? Do you want MAID? They don't say, do you want to commit suicide, which would be, in my view, a more accurate, more truthful way of expressing it. They don't say, do you want to commit suicide? We can get a doctor to help you to do that. They say, but there's people that are, there's a woman in Alberta recently who had some back surgery scheduled, and she was not terminally ill, and basically just, had a back problem that needed to get fixed by surgery. And somewhere along the way, one of the, I don't know if it was a doctor, nurse, or other healthcare worker or administrator said, another option for you is MAID. This is like, what? Like, I'm going to get back surgery and you're offering me MAID? So a lot of, heard another case, I forget the lady's name, but she became a quadriplegic after getting the COVID shot, and she's not getting financial compensation, but she's been offered MAID twice. We're quadriplegic now. Well, we can offer you MAID. So this has become really, without any internet advertising or billboards, it's become very prevalent in the healthcare system. And I don't have hard data, but I have lots of anecdotal that, this is becoming so routine to just be offering this to many people frequently.
Well, we got some news. If you go back and watch our show, you're going to see today, we told the people about, they're going to seal the records for COVID injuries for 15 years.
We sent out a tweet about that this morning. Yeah. Yeah, if you're coming from a place of truth and justice, you're not afraid of information, right? If you want to hide information, prevent people from getting information that they're entitled to get, then you're not coming from a place of truth and justice and integrity if you need to hide information. And this is not about confidentiality. The medical data does not list the names and addresses of individual patients and what their conditions are, right? The medical data is anonymized. There's no excuse for withholding that kind of information from the public.
Are you going to fight that, John?
I'll talk to my litigation director. He's the one who decides what cases to take on. And we try to do as much as we can, but with 10 lawyers in a country of 40 million people, there's always limits on how much we can do.
You can go to John's website, jccf.ca as well. Diana's asked if there's any petitions that people can sign against MAID. We get a lot of comments on the show right now. We have, I think there's about, close to 331 people on right now asking questions and stuff like that. So is there a place there?
I'm going to also talk with, we have some great letter writing software that we've put on our website where people can, for example, there's a big danger of Parliament reintroducing Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act. So we have a letter that people can basically click, find out who your MP is and sign and the MP gets a letter that says, do not bring back the Online Harms Act, and here's why. And so we will look into getting something similar set up, at least to change the law so we don't have depressed people being offered assisted suicide in 13 months' time.
And then Shelley said that her dad was also offered MAID. I mean, there's a lot of people in the comments here, but that's... So again, John does great work, and if you like the work that he does, like you said, he only has a small team of lawyers. We need more John Carpays out there. We need more Holly Dolan and Blacklocks. We need more of Ian and I out there. John has a website there. You can go there too. You can also make contributions. John also did the defense for Chris Barber. We had Chris Barber was on with John and myself in the Freedom Convoy, another dark moment in Canada's history. But I mean, it's the good work that people defending people's rights is that, because that seems completely ridiculous. The getting MAID for, depression and stuff like that, because usually that is something, people go through a period. It's not usually a life.
Most people, maybe not severe or clinical depression, but I mean, close to 100% of the population, we get into our down and dark times. It's pretty normal.
We're in a dark time. It's been a decade, John. It's been a dark decade in Canada.
We got a small ray of sunlight with the Federal Court of Appeal ruling on January 16th. This was a court action the Justice Center was involved with. We provided lawyers to 4 individuals who sued the federal government over the illegal invocation of the Emergencies Act. There were 2 or 3 other court actions as well, started by different groups, and so they were all consolidated. So the lower court ruled 2 years ago that the federal government did not comply with the Emergencies Act, that the freezing of bank accounts was an unjustified violation of our charter rights and freedoms, and the violence used against peaceful protesters and so on. And so the government, without reading the decision, 20 minutes after, or maybe it was 45 minutes after this 50,000 word, 100-page decision was released, 40 minutes later, the Chrystia Freeland and Trudeau and the federal Liberals were announcing they were repealing the decision. Well, thankfully they lost. So here, fast forward to January 2026. So just last month, the Federal Court of Appeal upheld the lower court ruling. So I'm just really encouraged because, we are in very dark times, but it's great to see this court's one level below the Supreme Court of Canada, and they've slapped the government in the face and said, no, you were wrong to declare national emergency and violate charter rights and freedoms.
No, nothing in the mainstream media on it yet, but I did see Joe Lee get asked in committee. It does, sound like they're going to appeal it to the Supreme Court.
They can't unless they persuade the Supreme Court that there is an unresolved, important legal doctrine that needs clarification, because the Supreme Court, most courts, you file the appeal and that's it. And they'll hear the appeal, they'll allow it or dismiss it. Very straightforward. The Supreme Court of Canada has a two-step process where first you go to the Supreme Court and you have to persuade them to hear your appeal, which doesn't mean they'll rule in your favor if they say yes. So the federal government would need to persuade the Supreme Court that this Federal Court of Appeal ruling has an unresolved legal doctrine that is of national importance, and that the court must hear this because there's a really important doctrine of law that needs clarification. So they would have I think they would have an uphill fight in trying to get the Supreme Court to hear an appeal.
Is there a clock on this one? Do they have a certain amount of time to push it to the Supreme Court if they did try to?
Probably 30 days is, I don't know for sure, but that's kind of the standard. You've got 30 days to think about an appeal.
You know, Tamara Lich has been quite vocal on this and on the amount of mainstream media not really wanting to ask the questions at all. I think Ezra Levant asked the question when he was chasing people down in Davos there, but nobody's really asked the question on the Freedom Convoy, and nobody's had to answer for it either.
It's still good. You know, this court ruling is going to help Chris Barber. I was chatting with Chris Barber's lawyer about 2 weeks ago, and she's using aspects of the Federal Court of Appeal ruling in her representation of Chris Barber. I don't have the precise details of it, but it's a very positive thing that we can be grateful for. Again, I'm not minimizing. Like, we're Canada's in deep trouble. I mean, if Parliament brings back the Online Harms Act and passes it into law, and if you combine that with the Online Streaming Act and the Online News Act and the Combating Hate Act, we're a police state where it's going to be, you know, we still have a lot of free speech left right now today. The fact that three of us are together and talking and there's viewers and listeners means we still have a lot of free speech left in Canada, but that's going to disappear pretty quickly if Parliament passes the Online Harms Act.
Well, we're going to fight till the bitter end, and I know you will. So I think you always have that good saying. Well, you say that. All it takes is for good men to do nothing.
All that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Yeah.
And then we're going to leave it at that, John. Again, you can go to John's website, jccf.ca, and if you like the work John's doing, you can make a contribution as well so that you can get more lawyers working on more things that are important to Canadians. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Great to be on your show, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. And we're going to kick it right back into the news here. We're going to go back into the next story as John leaves us there. That's kind of new. We're going to kind of do that feature. I liked it. What do you think, Ian?
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, it is good actually, isn't it? Because then we can do that separately as a separate clip, so you don't have to.
We'll clip it out.
You don't have to watch this 2-hour marathon video just to get the John Carpay bit. But
there you go.
No, he's an interesting chap. Just quoted Edmund Burke there. So
there's a couple of good things. There was a couple of really good pieces in there. One was because everybody's expecting, because even the mainstream media is pushing it, that there's going to be an appeal to the Supreme Court. John threw a bucket of cold water on that. So there you go. Thanks to John Carpay for jumping in there and giving us some insights there, especially on the 2027 thing too. That's actually coming into law. It has to be stopped, not pushed forward. It just has to be stopped. It's actually in force right now, and it's just a clock ticking on it. Let's go into some of our international news here, though.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Well, we got all kinds of news going on here, and we just need a little less of that $1.5 billion that CBC is wasting it on Rosie's sausage rolls. CBS, Margaret Brennan is talking to Maria Corina Machado. I didn't say that right, did I? You want to try it?
I can't see it in front of me, so let me see if I can get to the bit. I think you did say it. That was pretty accurate.
Let's play the clip while you find her name later. It's on the screen there. Anyway, let's play the clip from Maria.
You've kept those details private, you said, for safety reasons. But you did say you broke your back. You talked about being lost at sea, that you feared that you might lose your life at one point. After all of that, why did you give your Nobel Peace Prize to President Trump after you'd already dedicated it to him?
Look,
I think this is a matter of justice, and it's a matter of what's in the superior interest of our country. We, the Venezuelan people, are truly grateful for what he has done, and we're confident in what he will do in the days, weeks, and months to come.
You believe he supports you?
I do, because it has to do first and foremost with you, the American people, and how dismantling this criminal structure not only saves millions of Venezuelan lives, it also saves lives in the Americas. And once Venezuela is free, then the Cuban regime will follow. The Nicaraguan regime will follow. Even the Iranian regime that has turned Venezuela into its safe haven and satellite, only 3 hours away from Florida. I mean, this has huge consequence for the Western Hemisphere, for the United States. So I think this is a win-win situation for investment, for business opportunity, for security reasons, and certainly for migration tensions and crisis. So Venezuela.
That's good. She didn't like that. Or Margaret Brennan.
Basically being asked a question, which is an attempt to get her to say something not so nice about the President of the United States. Obviously, she's not going to say that, is she? Why would she? I mean, how bad at politics would she be if she did? If she suddenly came out and attacked the man who has the fate of her country in his hands?
Another victory for Trump as they won that court case there. Trump has kicked China out of the Panama Canal thing there. Remember when all the uproar about that, when Trump was saying he was going to take over the Panama Canal, and that, you know, they sold it for $1 and then he wanted it back. And that was his first Greenland play. Remember that? When he was taking over the Panama Canal, that was Greenland 1.0. If anybody sees a pattern
you
yet,
can see why as well. It's much more important to the United States, I would argue. Or,
for sure.
Well, as important, let's say.
Thank you to Diana. I love your show. Best show in Canada. Thank you for that. And well, you know, the bar is pretty low when we're competing against Rosie Barton and David Cochran. We'll take them on anytime. We should get people to start sending letters in and say, let's do a showdown. Winner gets their time slot on their shill network. We'll still live stream, but anyway. Anytime, Rosie and David. You got way more years than us, but we'll take you on.
We'll do a head-to-head.
Head-to-head, yeah, that's right. That's the same thing on the... oh, yes, another win in the Supreme Court. 5-4 ruling that Trump can now start doing the gang deportations in that... so they can start in the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. And that means that Tren thugs get shipped straight to El Salvador. And then the big debut, and it happened here in Canada as well. Somebody said, I think it was on Daily Hive, they said they only sold one ticket to the opening in Vancouver there. But it's playing in Kelowna as well. Melania debuted yesterday in theaters, and it had the highest grossing opening for a documentary in a decade. Melania. I don't know if you're rushing out to see it or not, but I've heard good reviews on it. So, $8 million
sure
in one weekend.
Get trashed.
What's that?
It's going to get trashed by activist types, though, isn't it?
Oh,
I just had a look on IMDb, with like the main sort of I don't know, like crowdsourced movie review site, and it's 1.3 out of 10, which makes it pretty much the worst reviewed film ever.
So for reviewers,
it's not very kind, but people will inevitably jump on it like that. It's going to be impossible to make a judgment based on reviews like that.
If the reviewers are right, I'd go watch that one, because usually the reviews that are good, I've never watched those films. But I just jumped on CBC, and if we can pull CBC up, just to see what CBC is covering today, because I'm sure it's all Canadian news, right? It's got to be Canadian news. No? Let's pull up CBC. Latest Epstein files include more mentions of Trump. There you go.
Another powerful man.
Latest Epstein files. Storm of medical, I don't know. Just TDS websites. Just garbage.
The Grammys.
We got some Grammy stuff later here. We got some Grammy stuff. The stuff that you don't want to see, you won't see on CBC for sure, but you'll see it here on The Really Big Show, because The Really Big Show wants to bring you the truth. The truth shall set you free. And then this is where the Americans have one up on us. So they have a space program going on right now. And this is NASA Director Jarek Isaacman saying the U.S. is developing nuclear space propulsion plans to put a nuclear reactor on the moon and will mine on the moon. There's got to be some moon protests out there. Emily Lowen must have something to do. Maybe even Stephen Gabot can get up there. Yeah, you know what? Maybe they can do a carbon thing up there, because right now there's how much carbon's in that atmosphere? All right.
It's quite true that there will be protests on that, and they'll have the save the moon is going to become a catchphrase. I would, if Polymarket was offering that, I would chuck some money at it. That's definitely going to happen, isn't it?
Elon Musk retweeted this, and it says, Nicki Minaj. Do I say that? Minaj? Minaj? I'm not a movie star follower. I'm not even sure. Is she a singer? She must be something, right? No. Rapper. There you go. Desert Fox said she's a rapper. Our producer said that too. So what sensible, forward-thinking, cutting-edge nation is having a debate? Again, even Canada, we have voter ID, but the U.S. doesn't want voter ID in some states for some strange reason. Odd, isn't it?
It's funny because she's not. I don't think she can vote. She's not an American citizen because she just bought that. She's been bragging about buying the gold card thing.
Okay, there you go.
The Trump gold card. I think she was born in like Trinidad and Tobago or something like that, some Caribbean island.
She's a Trump big fan.
It's funny that you're saying that.
She's a #1 TDS fan. She's going to get on. She's going to make it on the CBC website with that kind of talk.
Definitely.
Your friend Keir Starmer there. You've interviewed Keir Starmer in person, haven't you?
I've had that privilege, yeah, of that exciting moment of my life.
He went to China and he got a deal. And it doesn't sound like a very good deal, but he's proponing it or making it sound like it's a good deal. Basically, we got to sell whiskey. Oh. They got to sell whiskey for like half. They're billing it. It's like, we've dropped the tariffs on whiskey for 50%, literally from 10 to 5%. So doesn't it sound better? If you would have said you dropped the tariffs from 10% to 5%, that'd be like, who cares? But you 50%. See how they work the stat? Oh, it's 50% off on the tariffs, you know. And then what did the Chinese get? Oh, right. AstraZeneca is going to go there and build a factory. They're going to go build a factory there.
$15 billion or something. Massive amount of investment.
So you got 5% off of the whiskey, and AstraZeneca is going to go there so the Ferengi can steal all the tech. Good idea.
Well, it's also what you're looking at here, the EV thing, because they have their own EV mandate in that ridiculous country run by imbeciles. And obviously that's going to benefit them because they're going to dominate that market with subsidized cars that they can sell more cheaply than rivals.
I said the same thing's going to happen in Canada. They're going to come here. They're going to have this EV mandate on, and the American and Japanese automakers are going to be forced to buy credits from the Chinese EV makers, and then they'll be subsidizing the Chinese EV that they can't compete with in the first place. That is being
ridiculous. There's just no, like, this is the thing, you keep waiting, you throw the stone into the abyss and you keep waiting to hear the bottom when it comes to the British elite, but there is no bottom. It's a bottomless abyss of stupidity. There's no limit to what they can do. They are undoubtedly the stupidest people in the entire world. I'm going to stamp that. It's official.
Well, another loss for the world order, new world order, according to this, right-wing populist Laura Fernandez wins presidential election for Costa Rica. Her platform emulated that of El Salvador president, and I'm not going to say his name, Nayib Bukele? Bukele? There you go.
Nayib Bukele. He's Palestinian origin, El Salvador president, Salvadorian.
Another country that is going to more conservative politics. It seems to be working in Argentina and El Salvador. Their economies are growing. Their crime rates are falling. Huh. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Meanwhile, we're going to open up government grocery stores here in Canada. Can't wait. Can't wait to stand in line for nothing, like kind of like free healthcare. You can stand in line for free healthcare that doesn't exist. Stand in line for the free grocery stores that have no food on the shelves. That'll be good. But big news. I'm never going to say this name. Punxsutawney? You say it.
Punxsutawney Phil. Have you ever seen Groundhog Day?
Groundhog Day. Looks like 6 more weeks of winter. We haven't even had winter here in Kelowna. It's been pretty mild. You've had it all. You kept it all over there.
I haven't had anything but winter for the last 100 years, it feels like, here in Ottawa.
Well, we got a couple of really big stories here. The WHO meltdown. This guy is now saying they didn't do any of this stuff. Listen here.
Did not impose anything on anyone during the COVID-19 pandemic. Not lockdowns, not mask mandates, not vaccine mandates. We don't have the power to do that. We don't want it, and we're not trying to get it. Our job is to support governments with evidence-based guidance, advice.
What did Canada just sign up for then? What's going on? Now it's like a backpedaling, right? We didn't do that. We didn't do any of that.
It was just advisory, which is true. But I mean, if you didn't go along with it, then you would be chastised in your own country as well as by the UN, by the WHO. But also, he said, "Oh, we just try to help governments during the COVID pandemic." What about Taiwan? Did you help them? The answer is no. They wouldn't have any business with Taiwan. They wouldn't even respond to their emails because they're so enslaved by the Chinese. They are such obvious, transparent slaves of China that they told the Chinese Communist Party's line on Taiwan.
You know,
so that's just one example. And also this guy, Tedros, was put into that job by China as well. Something that he's never really come clean about. You know, these people, they're all compromised. They're covered in slime, these people.
The big contradiction is they're asking nations to sign up to be part of the WHO so that they can control pandemics. At the same time, they say, no, we're just advising. So why would you need anybody to sign up? Sign up for what? Just send out your advisories and shut up. Seems odd. Just like Trudeau said. Just like Trudeau said, he didn't force anybody to take the vaccine. And he's right there. He didn't hold anybody down by the throat and make them do it. He just made their lives miserable by firing them and restricting all their mobility, basically making them just like, like the undesirable, like they had the plague. That's all he did. But he didn't actually like hold somebody down on the ground.
Theresa Tam didn't, and Bonnie Henry didn't force anybody to use a glory hole either. They just innocently suggested that. That would be healthier.
And then more good news. The Americans pulled the plug on these things here. And, of course, the left is losing its mind. But here's another one. The United Nations now says it's broke. Let's listen to this here from GB News. Yes?
Gentlemen, pull out your smallest possible violins. The UN is going broke. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has come out and warned of imminent financial collapse for the organisation, citing unpaid fees from members and a particular rule that says that the UN needs to pay back any unused funds to member countries. I say call in the receivers, start selling the furniture. The world will be a better place without this corrupt, woke, anti-Semitic relic that is now making a mockery of its noble origins. I don't have time to go through...
That's good. I like his accent even better than yours. It's even a little thicker, eh?
That's an Australian accent.
Is it? Well, there you go.
Yeah. I don't like the UN. It's just not mateship, mate. But as for his point, I don't know. Will the world be a better place? I don't like the UN at all. I think it's a ridiculous organisation. I don't. It's hard to imagine any serious people thinking that. But would the world be better without it?
No.
I don't know.
They've lost their way for sure. They have lost what their purpose was. They have become this virtue signaling climate thing, collecting money, distributing money. They're the one that's driving this migration policy. That's like it's. It's been hijacked, just like many things have been hijacked. And I would even say, like I said, Jean Chrétien was my favorite politician. And that whole party's been hijacked by an ideology. But guess who showed up at the Grammys? Because so many people showed up at the Grammys, and they were telling, like Billie Eilish, there's a piece out there, Billie Eilish says, we're all on stolen land. And so somebody said, I think they're coming from Australia, they're coming to live in her house. And said their $6 million Malibu house there obviously is up for grabs because it's on stolen land. So, but this guy here, let's listen to what he has to say, because the person that he talks about is more important than himself.
I know they're going to try to kick me off here, so just let me try to get this out. First of all, Jesus, I hear you and I'm listening, Lord. I am listening, Lord. Second of all, I want to thank my beautiful wife. I would have never changed my life without you. I'd have ended up dead or in jail. I'd have killed myself if it wasn't for you and Jesus. I thank you for that. I thank you for my label, Broken Bow, Country Radio, baby. What's up, dog? Oh, Republic, John Manili, we did it, baby. There was a time in my life, y'all, that I was broken. That's why I wrote this album. I didn't think I had a chance, y'all. There was days that I thought the darkest things. I was a horrible human. There was a moment in my life that all I had was a Bible this big and a radio the same size and a 6x8 foot cell. And I believed that those two things could change my life. I believed that music had the power to change my life and God had the power to change my life. And I want to tell y'all right now, Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is not owned by one political party. Jesus is not owned by no music label. Jesus is Jesus, and anybody can have a relationship with him. I love you, Lord.
That's good. Jelly Roll. Just think, he in 2027 in Canada, he may have used MAID instead of finding Jesus.
Yeah, and you'd also, if you tried to put on a gig, probably would have been chased out of town, as happened to that other Christian fella, whose name I can't remember. Sean Foyt.
Sean Foyt, yeah. Yeah, he got a lot of hate, Sean Foyt here, for coming to Canada. Imagine that. He got some CBC airtime because he was a Trump. What was he, a Trump supporter? What do they call him? They use that name. I can't remember what they do.
MAGA. Extremists, wasn't it? Yeah.
So is Jesus MAGA? Is Jesus MAGA?
What would the A stand for? Make Aramaic great again.
Would CBC call Jesus MAGA?
Probably. I mean, they kind of do by implication, don't they? Even Mark Miller kind of does, doesn't he?
Yeah. Jesus is MAGA. Better to find Jesus than to find MAID. I'll tell you that.
What's funny, though, when I was listening to that, his little speech there, this guy who I'm guessing doesn't have a formal education or anything like that, or certainly not like an elite education, he's using the same rhetorical techniques that you hear in the British House of Commons. He's using the rhetorical technique known as anaphora. That's the Greek precise term for it, where he started the sentence with the same few words. And just to emphasize, I can't remember what he says, like, Jesus is a, like that. That's like, you hear that. If you listen to the House of Commons, or maybe not so much these days because they're all stupid, but if you listen to old videos from the House of Commons in England, they use that all the time. And obviously, like, Abraham Lincoln would speak like that as well. Very interesting that he speaks like that. And I would assume that he got that from the Bible. I assume that Bible he's holding is a King James Bible. And that just, that reminds everybody, or should remind everybody, to read the Bible.
Best story ever told, or the most, it's on the bestseller list. It is the most, what is that, the bestseller, like the #1 bestseller overall.
Next to Mao's Red Book.
There you go.
Little Red Book. But it is, I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to read it for religious reasons. If you don't like that sort of thing or whatever, you might be some rabid Richard Dawkins style atheist or something like that. But you should read it, specifically the King James version, just because it's the most beautiful language ever put down on paper, pretty much, I would say.
I say this a lot privately, and this is the first time I'll probably say it on this show, is one of the big problems with media in North America, maybe in the UK as well, in Western media, is that it's a godless media. Like, they've lost their way, and it seems to me they're more about burning down Christian values, family values, than they are about upholding what Western civilization was built on, and that's the kingdom of Christ, really. Right? Western civilization is based on Christ, and they seem to be wanting to. What do you call them yesterday? What's that word? Oikophobes? Oikophobes?
Oikophobes, yeah. It's another good Greek word, isn't it?
We'd rather be an oikophobe than be part of what the Western civilization was built on. That's odd, isn't it? Again, better to find Christ than to find made. We do have one clip, a little funny one here for you, just because Mark Carney likes to think he's funny. So let's play him being funny. Here he is. This is the best clownish he's ever been. He gets the clown award for this one, literally.
Dirk Meisner, Canadian Press. This is another one that you might not want to answer, but are you going to run for the federal Liberal leadership?
I definitely don't want to answer that. Look, I am doing my job. I'm going to do my job. Pretty simple. I've got 2 years and change.
What about other federal politics other than the Liberal leadership?
Why don't I become a circus clown? I mean, what? It's like, I appreciate the great concern about my career. I'm back home in Edmonton to declare my candidacy for leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada.
There you go.
Why don't I become...
YouTube's going to kill us for that, putting Eminem in, aren't they? Sorry, YouTube.
We'll block that out right at the end there. We'll cut that piece out there. Turn that music off.
Claudio asked me about that word that I used to describe the speech, and it's anaphora with a. I mean, I'll just hold on. I'll just write it down. There you go. We're teaching rhetoric. We're teaching ancient Greek rhetoric here, and they call us the small town rubes.
Proud to be a small town rube, rather that than a Laurentian elite that looks down at people. That's every day the Laurentian elite tell you how you can do more by sending in more tax dollars. Well, they can waste it and then tell you can't even see what they're wasting it on. That seems odd, no? You have the power. You guys can share this, get this out to as many people as possible. Put this in all the CBC, CTV stuff, Liberal MPs. Just put it everywhere. Just splash it everywhere. Spam them. Spam them. And yeah, on this show, you're going to learn your vocabulary as I do every day. Ian Burns, the master of the English language, the real English language. Even Mark Carney doesn't know the English language. He always uses the wrong one, not the Canadian one. So,
well, he can't use any version, can he? But it is particularly strange.
He puts two words together. He puts two words together. Anyway, that's our show. That's our show for today. Again, we put that interview in, which I thought was, we're going to try and do that more often. I thought that was good. Tomorrow, we do have the interim leader of the BC Conservative Party that's going to jump in with Ian and I. Trevor Halford is going to jump in tomorrow. So we're going to have Trevor Halford tomorrow on the Really Big Show. Look at that, eh? This show is picking up steam. We got snazzy ties. Somebody dished their ties on Friday and said that we need to get new ties. Look at that. I don't know, we color coordinated or what, but
which one did I have on? Was it this one? If so, I take that very personally because this is the Burns tartan, the Burns clan tartan.
It wasn't that one, but Diana, thank you, Diana. You just drop it everywhere. And we do appreciate everybody, especially the people that come every day. It's just absolutely, it's kind of like a family here. And we're going to save Canada one day at a time, one news story at a time. We're clipping this too, like putting lots of clips out there so you can share clips and that, because I know it's long, but sometimes you got to do it long because you're going to get more here than you're going to get at CBC, probably by a factor of 10x. And thank you, August. Thank you, Chloe. And no more ties. Ties are for slaves. Hey, we got to wear the ties. Some people won't take us serious unless we tie it up. There you go. There's cheap humor for you. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you for watching Now Media.